Have you ever felt like one tiny mistake, maybe missing a class, bombing a test, or forgetting assignment, means that everything around you is just going to explode? Like one bad grade means you're going to fail the class. And if you fail the class, then you won't get into a good college. And if you don't get into a good college, then you won't get a good job. And then your life is ruined. If this sounds dramatic, it's because it is. But for so many students, this kind of thinking happens all of the time. And it has a name: catastrophic thinking. Hey there, I'm Katie Azevedo of schoolhabits.com. I'm a private executive function coach who teaches students and professionals strategies to learn and work smarter. Please let me know you're here by subscribing, liking, and leaving a comment or a question. That would be awesome. And today we are talking about something that can completely wreck your grades if you're not careful with it. And it actually has nothing to do at all with how smart you are or how hard you study. Like I said, it's called catastrophic thinking. That is a really fancy way of saying that we imagine the worst case scenario when something goes wrong. And if it sounds familiar, you're not the only one who thinks so, because it is a real thing. We've got to get a handle on it though, or it can really mess with our confidence, our goals, our grades, our accomplishments, and literally like what we do with our life. Talk about being dramatic. So here is what we are covering in this video. What catastrophic thinking is, don't worry, I'm going to keep it simple, why it is so dangerous for your grades and your confidence, and then most importantly, how to stop doing it. So let's start with a clear definition. Catastrophic thinking is when you assume the worst possible outcome without any logical proof that it's actually going to happen. It usually starts with something small, maybe you bomb a test, and instead of thinking like, okay, I need to do better next time, we spiral into thoughts like, all right, well, now I'm going to fail the whole class. And if I fail the class, then I won't get into a good college. And if I don't get into a college, then my life will be ruined, right? I kind of just like walked through that train of thought at the beginning of this video. Or maybe you miss a class and you tell yourself, all right, well, now I'm already behind, so there's no point in trying to catch up. And then this turns into, well, I'm never going to understand this unit. And then so I might as well literally never go to this class again and drop out of college. And just like that, one small setback turns into a mental avalanche of worst case scenarios. And again, this is catastrophic thinking. Well, why do we do this? It's always a reason why our brains do things. Well, it's because our brains are wired to avoid danger. And when something goes wrong, our brains quickly jump to the worst possible outcome in their cute little attempt to protect us. Except in this case, it's not protecting us, it's hurting us. So specifically, why is catastrophic thinking such a problem for students? Well, because it directly messes with our ability to learn, focus, and actually do school. Catastrophic thinking is so powerful in a bad way that it can completely wipe out any, original plans or hope or rationality that you had just moments before the catastrophic thought hit. How? Because it increases stress. If you are constantly imagining the worst case scenarios, our stress levels go through the roof. And if you don't know this by now, our cute little stress hormones can hijack absolutely every single system in our bodies, including the ones needed for thinking and learning and emotional regulation. It also kills motivation, because if you think you're completely doomed, then why even try? It makes it harder to focus. Your brain is so busy worrying about the future that it can't focus on the present. And some of this does have to do with those stress hormones again. And then when we're overwhelmed, stressed, and unmotivated, it is almost impossible to do school. So if this is you, if you catch yourself spiraling into worst case scenarios, this is something that we've got to address. But the good news is you can absolutely fix it, or at least make an effort to get better at it. So let's get to the good part. How do you stop catastrophic thinking, especially as it applies to school? I'm going to give you 4 practical steps that you can use, like literally the next time that you start to spiral. Step 1, catch yourself in the act. The first step is self-awareness. When you catch yourself spiraling, just call it out. Literally say to yourself, okay, I am catastrophizing. The key here is to be honest with yourself without judging yourself. It's not about being mad that you're thinking this way. It is about recognizing it. Now, catching yourself might look like maybe noticing your anxious feeling in your stomach, or hearing that negative voice in your head, or realizing that you are avoiding your work because you're overwhelmed with the idea of it. Once you catch it, you've already taken the first big step. Now, I get it that this may seem weird at first to be like, I'm catastrophizing. But that level of self-awareness is essential if any of the other anti-catastrophizing strategies that I'm going to share are going to work. Now, step 2, After you've recognized that this is what you're doing, challenge your thoughts. Do not just accept the negative thought as fact. Ask yourself, is there actual evidence to support this worst case scenario? Is there any good, real proof that this terrible outcome is guaranteed or even likely to happen? Most of the time, the answer is a hard no. Now, going back to the example of missing a class, you might think, I am so far behind now that I'm just never going to catch up. But like literally, what's the evidence for that? Is it true that missing one class means that you can't ever catch up? Or is that just a feeling you're having in the moment? So instead, you could try asking yourself, okay, what are some of the other possible outcomes of this thing that just happened? What would I say to a friend who had this exact same thought or situation? Have I succeeded in similar situations before? Like, have I been here before and not died? Remember, our thoughts are not always facts. They're just thoughts. And we get to challenge them. In fact, we have to challenge them. That's the entire point of this video. Now, step 3, replace the thought. So now that we've challenged the catastrophic thought, our goal is to replace it with something realistic and helpful. That's the nature of habit change anyway, right? We can't just tell ourselves to stop a habit. The best way, this is like sort of just behavioral psychology, the best way to change a behavior is to replace the behavior, not just a cold turkey, say, I'm never gonna do this again. But to say, okay, when I'm tempted to do this thing, I'm gonna do this instead. So side note, if there's anything you want to change or work on or a habit you want to drop, then replace it with something else. And that is what we're doing here. All right, so instead of thinking, I'm already behind, so I'll never catch up, you replace it with, okay, I missed one class, but I can review the notes, I can watch the recording, I can ask my professor for help, or maybe ask, my friend to share their notes. Now, one strategy that you might find helpful here is to try to play devil's advocate. So imagine that your best friend were catastrophizing, and then imagine what you would say to them to help them be more rational. So if your best friend came up to you and said, hey, I missed 2 classes and now I'm confused, so I'm gonna drop out of college. What would you say in return? You'd probably say something like, why don't you just meet with the professor and try to catch up, right? It is so much easier to become rational when we imagine we're speaking to someone else versus speaking to ourselves. We are masters at justifying our own behavior. So the point is to replace the negative thought with a specific, doable plan of action. All right, last step, step 4, focus on actions and not outcomes. So using this missed class example, again, don't focus on the fear of failing the entire unit and don't focus on the outcome you want to have. Don't worry, I'm going to explain this, but just focus on the steps that you can take right now. All right, so how do we do this? Number 1, break it down. Literally figure out what the next step is. So using our example, maybe it makes sense to review your notes first and then rewatch the recording, right? And then connect with the professor. And then next, actually write this plan in your calendar. Write down what day and when you're gonna review your notes, what day and when you're gonna watch the recording, and what day and when you're gonna meet with your professor. And if you don't know, then email your professor and set it up. But notice here, we're focusing on the actions that we can take and not on the outcome we want to have. Now, of course, the outcome is I want to understand all of the material in this class and not be overwhelmed and not feel behind anymore. And that is a terrific outcome that we are going to shoot for, but that is not an action we can take. We need to focus on literal, concrete things that we have control over because the outcome is something that we don't have control over. Now, if we take the right actions at the right time in the right order, more or less, we can increase our chances of getting that outcome. But again, we are only in control of what we do and not necessarily what happens as a result of that. Now, for example, I know that this isn't related to, school and studying, but let's say that you wanted to improve your marathon time. Well, declaring that you want to run 26.2 miles in 3 hours and 45 minutes is an outcome and not a strategy. The action that you would have to take is to say, okay, well, I'm going to integrate sprint workouts into my weekly trainings. I'm going to incorporate HIIT intervals, and I'm going to increase my hill workouts, whatever it takes to improve your mile time. Now, that will hopefully lead to the right outcome, but hoping for an outcome without taking the actions that lead to that outcome is a bit silly, don't you think? All right, so let me recap the 4 ways to combat catastrophic thinking in school just so they stick. And yes, you probably noticed by now that these strategies, these step-by-step, this first do this, then this, then this, then this, the 4 steps, don't just apply to school, okay? But I'm delivering it to you in the context of school because this is school habits. Okay, number 1, acknowledge the catastrophic thought. Challenge your thoughts. Remind yourself that it is just a thought and not a fact. And then we replace our thoughts with a realistic counter thought. And to do this, you can, imagine talking to someone else. That's called reframing. Make it actionable. Decide what you're gonna do next, and then do it. It's so simple. So if catastrophic thinking has been wrecking your grades, I hear you, I see you, because it happens all of the time with the students I work with, both inside School Habits University and in my private practice. But it doesn't have to stay this way. You have the power to catch those thoughts, to challenge them, and to replace them with something more helpful. Our minds play games on us sometimes, which is normal, but we have to know how to play back. Also, I want to hear from you. Does catastrophic thinking sound like something you struggle with? Let me know in the comments. I love comments. I read them all. I reply to them all too. And of course, if you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to School Habits for more videos just like this. As always, I appreciate you. And thank you so much for watching.